Do you remember the days before Fallout 4 existed? The grass looked a little greener, the sky a little bluer, there was this crisp scent in the air. The anticipation and rising cult fandom of the undoubtedly brilliant and not appreciated in its time classic Fallout New Vegas meant that the Fallout franchise was actually underrated. Then, the announcement, and I could make a whole video just talking about this bad boy right here, but instead, suffice to say, several YouTubers had their entire careers kickstarted just because they covered it at the time. The rest is history. The game came out to massive acclaim, won a bunch of awards, and made even more money. Heck, it even got all the high reviews. But what if I told you it sucked? Alright, look, before I get myself blown up and swept away in a sea of fanboy hatred and blind rage, allow me to preface my statement. I'm a huge Fallout fan. The universe, the lore, and especially the games. It's just got that perfect blend of post-apocalyptic dread, hysteric goofiness, and supernatural/paranormal, ness to it. In short, I'm a huge fan, and I even thought Bethesda and Obsidian had the right idea when they each respectively made Fallout 3 and New Vegas. Those games were awesome, and opened the universe up to millions of people who would have otherwise never enjoyed them. I have a lot of appreciation for those games, and I truly think they're some of my favorite video games of all time. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I played and partially enjoyed Fallout 4. This is a game I've spent well over 100 hours playing, and I think it's important to say that the game itself certainly did plenty of things right, or at least much better than had ever been done before in the franchise, which is partially why it was such a conflicting experience. Customizable, wastelandy equipment was improved, power armor was rehauled and made infinitely more enjoyable. Even companion dynamics improved exponentially, with these side characters being made more of a focus in this game than they were previously. And none of this even mentions the graphics, which were an undeniably tremendous upgrade from the previous era of Play-Doh faces and comedic/horrific expressions. It is also definitely worth mentioning that I think the dev team behind Fallout 4 was sincere in their desire to make a fun game. Emil Pagliarulo, the head writer of Fallout 4, actually responded to a video I made a long time ago, and I think he's a real stand-up guy whose readiness to watch my little podunk theory about accents in the Fallout universe was a huge point of excitement for me, and I'll never forget his kindness and willingness to stoop down into the gutters of YouTube to humor me. The truth is, Fallout 4 was not terrible. It was a fun game with plenty of great new features and exciting gameplay elements. There's nothing wrong with playing this game and having fun or thinking it was a good game. But in my mind, when all is said and done, I think it's fair to say that Fallout 4 damaged the franchise considerably more than it benefited it in the long run. Sure, the game made its money back, and then some. From a financial perspective, the game was a smash hit. But for the world in general, the lore, the characters, it was a critical blow that damn near destroyed the Fallout franchise in my mind. In fact, if Fallout 76 hadn't come out and completely and utterly rewritten the lore to make it considerably worse, Fallout 4 would have been my least favorite game in the entire franchise. The critical blunder to this franchise can be summed up in just one word: potential. And more specifically, the squandering of it. Consider this your spoiler warning, because we're going to discuss everything. Starting with the build-up. So it's important to understand something about Fallout 4. Fallout 4 takes place in the Commonwealth, a name that previous players from Fallout 3 would and should immediately recognize. This is because of what was arguably one of the most notorious quests in all of Fallout 3, dubbed the Replicated Man. In this quest, the Lone Wanderer is tasked with finding and capturing an actual, fully fledged, organic, man-made android, created by a faraway laboratory of brilliant scientists mysteriously dubbed the Institute. Their technology is such that it dwarfs even pre-war standards. Indeed, this secret society was not to be trifled with, and truly elicited a great deal of awe and wonder. The quest is given in Rivet City and is pretty goddamn unmissable, in part because Dr. Zimmer is a huge asshole and he makes damn well sure everyone else knows it. This quest right here did a marvelous job at setting up the mystique of the Commonwealth and the mysterious nature of the institute that resides there. Dr. Zimmer scolds Dr. Lee's seemingly groundbreaking research on water purification as child's play and, quote, not real science, implying that the institute is so advanced that the significant setbacks confronting the rest of the world, most notably life support systems and water purification, don't matter to the institute at all. This might be a good time to remind you that the entire plot of Fallout 3 revolves around your desperate fight to set up the first large-scale water purification plant, and yet, to Dr. Zimmer, such endeavors are trivial and artless. Safe to say this felt like a pretty big flex, and we all knew this asshole wasn't lying because the android was fucking real, and if someone can create life from just raw material, well, it ain't a stretch to assume they can deradiate some water. As if that wasn't interesting enough, halfway through the quest, someone from an organization called the Railroad shows up. They give the player the means to fake the hunted android's death, and give even more info on the Commonwealth and the Institute, building both of these factions up and making each seem as if they are of great significance. Now look, I know some of you might be thinking, well, yeah, the Institute and Railroad were both big deals in Fallout 4, and yeah, you're right. The issue is that they were, and yet at the same time, they weren't. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. The whole reason I bring this up is because the Institute, the Commonwealth, the Brotherhood of Steel, and the Railroad had all been introduced long before Fallout 4 was even conceived. There was world building that had been done. Stakes were set pretty damn high. I mean, I can't be the only person who played that quest and was just blown away by how high concept and mysterious everything regarding the Commonwealth and the Institute was. A place of higher science where androids were created with levels of sentience so advanced that they are indistinguishable from ordinary humans. And an organization of freedom fighters that had the manpower and will to help a synth that had made it all the way to the capital wasteland. I wanted to see these two factions directly, and when it was announced that Fallout 4 was in the Commonwealth of all places, I and many others were thrilled. Fast forward to release day, and I purchased the game and played it to death. I played every quest, every storyline, I even played every single DLC, and after reflection, well, I was left severely disappointed at how distinctly let down I was, given what had been set up in Fallout 3 and even in the beginning and mid-game of Fallout 4. Now, for the record, I do feel the need to stop right there and give the game a little bit more praise before I tear it back down. The first half of Fallout 4 was incredible and did an outstanding job of hyping up each faction to the maximum. The main motivation for the story was pretty goddamn universally compelling. The world has ended, your spouse is murdered, and your child has been taken. Excellent, and certainly a compelling reason to be hooked on finding resolution and finishing the game. The Institute was this seedy group of elusive scientists who kidnapped people and replaced them with perfect synth copies. Their skeletal robotic henchmen patrolled various locations of the Commonwealth, gathering important resources and striking terror into the hearts of the Commonwealth inhabitants. None other than their number one hitman, Kellogg, killed your spouse and stole your newborn child away from you. Safe to say, we were very compelled to learn more about this mysterious organization and its motivations. Then, there was the Railroad, which, despite the mass hysteria around synths and their insidious nature set forth by the Institute, sought to liberate them from their forced bondage. This is yet another compelling motivation for a faction to have because it's just right. They are saving innocent people's lives and proving them to be worth every ounce of effort, as synths are, by and large, completely normal people who've been created by artificial means. And shit, man. Then there was the Brotherhood of fucking Steel, which had one of the coolest and most hype introductions of any faction from any video game ever. When their war blimp roared into the Commonwealth, bellowing out commands to all those below, I was enraptured. I mean, how am I supposed to turn away from this? I can still remember walking out of the Kellogg encounter and just being blown away. These factions were super impressive during the first half of the game, and I was so excited to get to know them and discover the secrets behind each of their stated motivations. Each of these factions had been set up in previous games that were, by this point, almost a decade old, and now we were finally getting the chance to explore them further and see how they had developed and changed. Yeah, dare I say it, the first half of Fallout 4 was an exciting and compelling story to behold, wrapped up in the best gameplay and gunplay of the series. And here we run into one of the biggest issues in all of Fallout 4, and that is quite simply the second half of the game, aka where all that potential needed to stick the landing, and, well, it didn't. From this point forward, as questions are answered and motivations are revealed, the narrative itself starts to break apart and crumble, with compelling mysteries being revealed to be shallow and ill-conceived schemes at best, and borderline nonsense at worst. For example, when we finally get the chance to actually see the Institute, what do we find? A sprawling underground city of super scientists and the vast untold scientific discoveries and advancements they had minted? Not really. At first glance, the Institute looks cool, but as you explore it, you realize that pretty much everything about it is shallow and surface level. The whole Institute itself is a small compound, with a couple of separate laboratories and a bigger central atrium. It isn't a city, or even really a town. I'm not even really sure how they've managed to maintain genetic stability given how few people actually live here. And they don't really have any impressive technology save for life support systems, a teleporter, and the actual synth-making process. I mean, these guys don't even have power armor, and their guns suck. And look man, when I say suck, I mean the Institute, which is supposed to be more technologically advanced than humanity was pre-war, can't even make a laser pistol that's more effective than one I found lying in the middle of a goddamn wasteland 200 years after the apocalypse. The damage stats for the Institute's guns are worse than the regular laser weapons that are ambiently available just around the Commonwealth. What's more is that their armor is lame. Like first-time cosplayer trying to pull off that construction mech from the end of Alien 2, kind of lame. Just look at this stuff, it looks terrible. But that's not even the worst of it. Their ideology? Ugh. God damn it, it's as solid as wet cardboard. I mean, come on, these guys are supposed to be intellectuals, men and women of science who've embraced meritocracy and eugenics in the hope of restarting humanity. And yet, even when confronted with the fact that the synths they create are completely and entirely like human beings in every single way other than in the way that they were conceived, almost none of them are even remotely willing to consider the alternative. To the people of the Institute, synths are just robots, even though they obviously aren't. And I know some of you may remember Liam Bennett, codenamed the Patriot. He's an Institute scientist who helps to free synths, and by all means seems to be the only asshole in the Institute who's actually attempted to apply reason to the synth experience. No, seriously, in the entire Institute, there's only one person even willing to consider giving synths the most basic of human rights, and your only option for dealing with him is to use and abuse him, kill everyone the guy loves, and then have him kill himself. No option for diplomacy, no way to save his life, no way to change the outcome. Not very RPG of you, Bethesda. So, yeah, only one guy in all of the Institute has actually applied basic reason to the most fundamental question in the game. Are synths people, and are they worth saving if they are? Instead, they all blindly, stubbornly, and oh so very stupidly refer to synths as no more human than the obviously robotic servants they used before they had perfected the synth-making process. This is just so goddamn stupid, and it's such an unbelievably ridiculous aspect of the Institute. I mean, they're all supposed to be geniuses, but at the same time, they are all unequivocally stupid, close-minded, and philosophically brain-dead morons. It would have honestly been better, in my opinion, if the Institute saw their morally grim actions and rationalized them with a more scientific reasoning. Instead of thinking, these biological creatures with free will and little to no demonstrable difference from average ordinary humans can't be people because they were made in a laboratory with a few synth components. No, because of these slight differences, they can't be worthy of even the most basic of human rights. Hell, they aren't even worth the fucking consideration or debate of these things. How about you have them think something more rational like, regardless of a synth's personhood, the Institute strives to bring humanity into a new era. In order to accomplish this, the smartest, most capable of us must lead the rest. Slavery, deception, and terror in the Commonwealth today, all for a brighter future tomorrow. Don't get me wrong, it's certainly still a very bad guy motivation, but it's one that's way more understandable and rational than the alternative. Like, hey man, if I'm playing a bad guy or a raging pragmatist with loose morals, I could see myself siding with them for the, quote, betterment of the human race, at least to see where the story goes. Hell, there's even a nice little allegory there comparing the brutal techniques of the Institute to the real-life techniques early American settlers used to industrialize this nation. The United States was built on the backs of indentured servants, slaves, and disenfranchised folk. What if the future of humanity in the Fallout universe had the potential to be the same? But no, what we got is stupid and makes me think the Institute is full of dumbass savants who are only good at literally the one science they practice in the Institute, rather than them being the super geniuses whose goals and ambitions have all but done away with their morality. And don't even get me started on Father and the ridiculous nonsense that is his whole character arc. You're telling me that after making no attempt to establish any form of contact with you and potentially killing you in your quest to find and kill Kellogg, Father, aka your son, is just willing to let you be the de facto next leader of the Institute. After little to no vetting, he is willing to just give you the reins and provide very little explanation for it. Shit man, even the people in the Institute are weirded out by this, but that doesn't really matter because the world's smartest scientists are all members of a dictatorship, so their opinions mean nothing. I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound like a smart and meritocratic method of governance. The truth is, Father has no rational explanation for leaving you in charge, and it's because of this foolish decision of his that I was even able to destroy the Institute in the future as a railroad double agent or a member of the Brotherhood of Steel. He makes it too easy to play as a double agent because if you do, and I can't stress this enough, he kinda just hands everything over to you. This would have been a great place to add RPG mechanics to this game. Imagine if you had the option to become the leader of the Institute by earning it through merit. Maybe you could raise your intelligence and demonstrate your mad scientist prowess to each division head by solving a scientific conundrum that had halted their progress, proving that you're every bit as smart as them, and then some. Or maybe you're such a smooth talker that you win each division head over with your words, helping them to solve their own problems by providing the much-needed wisdom of a lonesome traveler whose adventures above ground are nothing to scoff at. You would chat with each division head throughout the story and pass various skill checks to get to know them and get them to see you as a worthy leader. If you can't win over the division heads, well, you don't get to be the leader of the Institute, but don't fret. Instead, you are unanimously selected as the first division head of above-ground operations. With coursers and the Synth Retention Bureau now falling under your dominion, you would be the de facto head of the Institute's military operations, a fitting position for someone of your skills. Doing these things wouldn't add a tremendous amount of work either. It's all just dialogue and text, and it fixes one of the biggest flaws with the Institute, that being their preference for a dictatorship. I don't know, man. The Institute itself was completely and totally underwhelming, and when I look at what we ended up getting, I can't help but feel like nothing about them really makes sense if you think about it for long enough. If anyone should have been asking the question of synth personhood, it should have been the Institute, and their conclusion and ultimate decision should have been based on science, reason, or philosophical soundness. Instead, we get asshole scientists who blindly believe synths are no different from robots, even though they demonstrably are. It felt like the Institute arbitrarily took this position simply because it was unoccupied and the main plot needed an obviously bad guy faction. Because, let's face it, the faction that enslaves an entire group of people just because of the status of their birth is obviously the bad guy here. And I can't not mention again just how mind-blowingly underwhelming their tech is. Even if they know how to grow trees and make gorillas, all I'm saying is Big Mountain seemed like a way bigger scientific achievement than the Institute, and the motherfuckers who ran that went insane and stopped maintaining it decades ago. So, alright, look, I could talk about this forever, but let's just end it there. That's one faction down. Now let's talk about the Railroad. So, the Railroad, yeah? The same one that sent an operative all the way up to the Capital Wasteland with specialty evidence that could frame a synth's death so convincingly that even the Institute was deceived? Yeah, turns out they're just a hole in the ground scraping to get by and practically obsolete by the time you get there. They are beaten down, completely depleted, and have absolutely no edge against the Institute, so much so that it's honestly a marvel they haven't been completely destroyed already. There are only 8 notable operatives left alive by the time you get to them, and with how easy it was to find them, it's a wonder no one in the Institute has sent a death squad of robots to kill them yet. Both of these factions were built up to be these substantial, well thought out, and capable organizations with their own skills and distinct advantages against one another, when in reality, they're just a handful of social justice warriors and a circle jerk of philosophically brain-dead assholes with ill-rationed ideologies. And I haven't even mentioned the Brotherhood of Steel, because it just hurts too, man. Okay, be strong, you can do this, Remember the proud Lion family? Leaders of the sect of the Brotherhood that tamed the East? The same guys who beat the Enclave and established clean drinking water for everyone in the Capital Wasteland? Sarah Lyons, the badass armored paladin with a heart of gold and a promising future who saves your life at the end of Fallout 3? Yeah, despite the rampant success of Fallout 3's campaign, the Lion family just dies out. Like that. Poof, they're gone. Elder Lyons dies of old age and Sarah Lyons just dies off screen. I shit you not. She is killed by an unnamed enemy. Instead of getting any of the badass characters we loved from the Brotherhood in Fallout 3, we get Arthur Maxson, the little jit from the Citadel. And guess what? He's a dense, dumb motherfucker with a lead head and one prerogative. Destroy the Institute with absolutely no option for diplomacy, peace, or incorporation. Oh yeah, and that means absolutely all of the innocent synths the Institute created along the way. Why? Because Elder Maxson falls prey to the exact same moronic flaw that everyone in the Institute shares. He is philosophically inept and morally bankrupt beyond pragmatic reason. I mean, come on. This dumb asshole commands you to kill Paladin Danse, a 100% loyal soldier who is directly the only reason the Brotherhood even knows about the Institute being in the Commonwealth. He's the only reason you drove the Pridwin all the way down here, and he's helped to destroy the Institute at every twist and turn, but no! Unless you max out your charisma stat or drink enough alcohol to sedate a Yao Guai, there is absolutely no way to get Maxson to show even a shred of loyalty in return. I don't even really have a problem with Maxson wanting Danse dead, I just feel like the reason they give is half-assed. Maxson acts like a rabid dog, spouting heavily debatable rhetoric that makes him seem really stupid. Why not just make Maxson's irrational hatred of Danse much more of a personal thing? At least that makes it understandable. See what I mean? The potential is just wasted at every twist and turn, and this is especially sad considering how badass the Brotherhood's introduction was. This game had a lot of potential that had been built up since Fallout 3 and potential that was enhanced significantly throughout the first half of the game. However, ultimately, the whole game boils down to the sad and simple conclusion that is quite simply, pick a side and kill everyone else. That's it. You can't talk people down, you can't get them to work together, you can't even get them to leave or deceive them into thinking they had won. You can't, I don't know, roleplay anything other than a bullet sponge who kills everything in its path. No matter what you do, the whole Institute is blown up and completely extinguished if you don't side with them. Your son father can never be reasoned with, Maxson can never be reasoned with, There's nothing you can do to alter the ending of the game at all other than just picking a different side and seeing what the post-game is like with the other two factions being completely exterminated. Spoiler alert, there is no post-game, so it's all up to your imagination. Is it weird that I felt like the goddamn synthetic being when I played this game? Maybe that was the point. I mean, what with me being forced to play out a completely rigid and non-customizable ending. And I just can't get this far into a Fallout 4 rant without mentioning how god-awful the voice acting for the game was. Nick and Nora have some of the most cringy dialogue options in all of the Fallout franchise, with charisma options that are so evidently uncharismatic that they've spawned memes around them. These guys are no Commander Shepard, and I can't tell you how many times I pressed a dialogue option in this game only to instantly regret how forced and cringy the dialogue wound up sounding. Look man, I'm not saying voice acting is easy, and I'm not saying I could have done any better, but if you're gonna have a voiced protagonist in your game, you really gotta have something special, otherwise just leave it to the audience to fill in with whatever voice they want. But you wanna know what the saddest thing is? It looks like at least some of these issues did have solutions planned out for them at some point. Developers at least wanted to add things like Institute armor that actually looked cool, and even Institute power armor. Hell, they had even planned for Dr. Zimmer to reappear in the Institute, which would have been an awesome callback for Fallout 3 fans. And while stuff like this wouldn't have fixed the game's overarching plot problems, it would have at least used some of that squandered potential I was talking about and make me dislike the Institute at least a little bit less than I already do. But alas, here we are, and none of those changes or options were ever added to the game at any point, even when they had ample opportunity to in the DLC, which is coincidentally just a picture-perfect segue for me to talk about. Now, I wish I could end this video here and leave it at that. I wish that my problems with this game ended with the main narrative, but honestly, the worst part of Fallout 4 for me was the terribly designed DLC and straight up insulting content that was called a quote finished product and sold to consumers at a hefty value. Dare I say it, Fallout 4's DLC is the worst DLC Bethesda has ever made, and I almost feel as if each DLC is trying to one-up the previous one as far as disappointment is concerned. If wasted potential could be used to describe a theme, then the theme of Fallout 4's DLC is, you get the idea. Don't believe me? Allow me to painstakingly and flabbergastingly reveal to you just how accurate that statement is. But before we open that can of worms, if you don't know, my brother and I write comic books for a very meager living. Our first issues are all free to read on the nightlibrary.net, and we've got a taste for every tongue, so to speak. Manga about a magical world of adventurers and unexplored lands, comics about powerful stone knights and the mystic ladies who oppose them, graphic novels about supernatural gunslingers who hunt monsters and drink their blood. Hell, we've even got a noir-type story about demon hunting super cops who keep the streets clean. Like I said, a taste for every tongue. So please, if you like this channel, you can support it by reading these comics for free, and maybe even purchasing a few from the store. I do not take sponsors on this channel because I am my own sponsor, or more specifically, you guys are. So like, subscribe, and comment. Help a starving artist out, will ya? Okay, let's get back into the shitfest that is Fallout 4's DLC, starting with the Automatron. This DLC sends the renowned Mechanist into the Commonwealth. You know, one of the most interesting side characters from one of Fallout 3's best quests. Well, guess what? The Mechanist is here, in the Commonwealth, only this Mechanist is killing people. Surely this is something the original Mechanist and any true fan of the character would shun. After all, the Mechanist is a good guy, right? Yet still, this robotic renegade broadcasts their message of salvation across the Commonwealth, all the while their robotic servants mow down hordes of innocent people. What could be the reason for such a strange series of events? Perhaps their mechanized raid is tied to the synth phenomenon. Is this meshing of technology and organics heresy to the Buckethead? I asked myself, what kind of person are we dealing with here? They seem to be pretty well versed in the lore of the character as they're nailing their lines, and yet they are evil? And pretty goddamn capable too, crafting machines and automatrons galore. Well, after an arduous, bona fide series of hunter-gather quests. You confront this, quote, mechanist in their lair only to find that it's just some moron who gave robots weak logic mechanisms. She didn't even know she was killing people, and when you tell her that's what's been going on, well, she just believes you. She accepts full responsibility just like that. The interesting premise of a lone mechanist acting high and mighty as a hero whilst also slaughtering the innocent? It's all just a silly mix-up because of a logic error and the foolish oversight of their maker. The Mechanist, not really an interesting character, just a generic, grew up in a settlement plagued by raiders and super mutants kind of person who used to read comic books as a kid. She just gives up the Mechanist armor and ceases being an interesting character in the least after her story is concluded. It's odd to me because rather than giving us a Mechanist companion who would spout off all the lines and play like a dream for any Silver Spectre cosplay character, we get a bland character of no value and a Mechanist costume that doesn't even open up new voice lines for the player. I find it hard to believe that someone this committed to the character and keeping up with appearances would just give up all of a sudden and fade into the background. And why would you ever write a quest to end this way? Maybe at least give her some quests where she can help the people of the Commonwealth that she's hurt so much, but no. Instead, you get this cut and dry quest. Whatever. I rationalized the weakness of this DLC at the time by reasoning that Ada was a worthy companion and that they'll get him with the next DLC. But, how did that work out exactly? Wasteland Workshop. Yay, more base building shit. Hey, they'll definitely get him with the next one, Far Harbor. Okay, so by and large, Fallout 4 and everything directly associated to it was pretty disappointing. I've made the case for that so far, but it can't be overstated just how bad Far Harbor is, and how this DLC is possibly the worst thing about this game. Allow me to explain. So both Bethesda and Obsidian had released DLC for their respective Fallout games prior to Fallout 4. These DLC are widely regarded as some of the best, most engaging, and valuable DLC to date. Pay $10 and unlock the ability to travel to the dour, rotten, and supernaturally terrifying swamps of Point Lookout. When you arrive, lay witness to all manner of exotic savages, mutated hillbillies, and borderline supernatural enemies and acquaintances. Pay $10 here and unlock the ability to travel to the unusually lush natural park of Zion, where the burned man has made a home for himself and an army alongside it. These DLC were reasonably priced, added a lot of new weapons, quests, and enemies, and they expanded the lore in various unpredictable but exciting and trailblazing ways. Quite simply, they were huge and really novel, and overall just fantastic additions to two already really solid games. Then we got Far Harbor, and the marketing leading up to it was fierce. The largest map of any Bethesda DLC, they said, the most expansive location yet, a mysterious island where unknown horrors lurk amongst the potentially supernatural fog. The prospect wasn't as interesting as, say, a Broken Steel or a Sierra Leone, nor as bombastic as a Mothership Zeta or Big Mountain, but it certainly had potential. And then you fucking get there. And every single twist and turn is a letdown. The Synth Haven, run by Nick Valentine's brother, a boring place that just wants peace between the two other factions on the island. There are the very creatively named Harbormen, who are apparently too fucking dense to even consider moving off of an island so overrun with radioactive fog that humans physically would not be able to survive there if not for artificial fog condensers. It's not even like they make or maintain these things as a way of sticking it to the island and its hazards against them. These things only exist because of the generosity of the synths who live on the island. After all, it is the synths of Acadia who both make and maintain all of the fog condensers. Not like that changes anything though, because the Far Harbor residents still treat the synths like shit, even though without them, they would be shrimp food. Oh, and then there's the Children of the Atom, who are radiation-loving morons who want the island to be consumed by fog because it's the will of Adam or some stupid shit like that. Yeah, that's the conflict here. Dumbasses want to live somewhere unlivable, and there are other dumbasses who want to live somewhere unlivable and ensure it stays unlivable forever. In the middle of them is Acadia, a haven for synths which at least has some reason for being in the middle of this uninhabitable rock as they're hiding from the Institute, but they don't offer any interesting quests, nor do they offer a companion to the player. In fact, Dima and his whole quest line is just convoluted and odd. Certainly not enough of a compelling main plot to pull most people through, or at least it wasn't for me, because I only finished the main quest for Far Harbor when I decided I was going to make a video talking about how bad this DLC was. The fog itself, there's nothing supernatural about it. It's just regular fog that I guess appears in Far Harbor because there's naturally a lot of fog here, and now it's just all irradiated. I guess we should also talk about the raiders on the island, as they were marketed as a potential faction as well. Are they a cult of savages who will cut open my head and cut out a piece of my brain during a hallucinogenic trip? No, they're just regular raiders who were driven insane from the fog's radiation. No motivations, plans, or interesting characters or cultures to speak of. If you're catching a trend here, then good, because that's intentional. Every faction in this game is shallow and boring once you get to know them. From a distance, they all sound exciting and full of mystery, but more often than not, when you take the time to actually do their quests and get to know them, they reveal themselves to be imbecilic, philosophically brain-dead, or just insane. There is absolutely no deeper meanings or motivations to be had. No complex characters, and oftentimes little to no explanation for their actions. And Far Harbor is the worst offender. In past DLC, we got questlines that unraveled slowly, revealing grand secrets, engaging characters, and their powerful motivations to act. If you expect that here, you're gonna be sorely disappointed. And let's follow that train of thought just a bit farther down the rabbit hole, because that's not the end of Far Harbor's terrible design. You know the traditional supernatural or eclectic quest of Bethesda DLC? It had become something of a staple in the franchise and a beloved aspect of each new DLC. You know, your point lookout demon encounter or big mountain brain conversation. Well, Far Harbor has something like that too. It's a vault filled with robotic pre-war celebrities and a murder mystery. The quest itself wasn't even bad. It was actually pretty good, but come on, dude. Where's the aliens? Where's the demons or ghosts? Where's the weird science, horror, or macabre goofiness? Something that leaves me in awe like every big DLC before this had managed to do. How does this expand the universe? How does any of Far Harbor expand the universe? Each other DLC had this penchant for building the world of Fallout. Each DLC left the audience wondering just how much of a scientific world we were living in, and indeed made us question whether Fallout was a world of supernatural mysticism and the occult. This quest doesn't do any of that. I mean, we already knew that brain bots were possible, it's very well established, and there's no new ground being broken here. There's no secret being teased or revealed, nothing that lingers with the audience once the mystery is solved. Oh! Maybe I spoke too soon. A quest about a mysterious red menace, you say? A giant radioactive sea monster with blood-red eyes, famed for killing every single hunter that's gone after it, and then some? Hell yeah, boy! This is what I've been waiting for! Yippee! Let's go hunt ourselves a big fucking monster! I knew Bethesda would deliver on their legacy of great DLC. Oh, I better bring some extra stim packs and ammo for this sucker. I bet he's gonna be huge! This is just insane game design. Like, who thought this would be good to put into their game? It's such a big middle finger to the audience that even the goddamned NPC is disappointed and ashamed. Did they do this to save money or something? Was this supposed to be a joke? Did anyone actually think this was funny? Was I the only motherfucker who played this quest and felt like I was getting cheated out of the only goddamn aspect of this island that was gonna be interesting? I mean, what the hell is there to do on this goddamned rock besides the most miserable plot-required minigame ever invented and endlessly roaming the drab, dull, and otherwise unremarkable turf that is Far Harbor? I guess I should mention that Longfellow was a thing? I don't know, this guy feels like the most ham-fisted companion in the entire game. He's just kinda there. He's got the personality of a fucking rock, which makes sense because he lives on one in the middle of nowhere. We only got Longfellow because it was easier for Bethesda to make him rather than 3 separate companions associated with the island's 3 factions. This is a serious question. Did any of you actually like Longfellow? If so, please tell me why. I need to know why him over any of the actual halfway decent companions this game has to offer. Whatever. They'll get him with the next DLC, right? Contraptions Workshop. More base building stuff. Okay. I guess they'll get him with the Vault Tech Workshop. Are you fucking kidding me? 6 goddamn DLC and 3 of them are cosmetic base building add-ons? This last DLC had better be fucking good. Nuka World. Okay, it's hard for me to talk about Nuka World because I never fully finished it. Okay, technically I did finish the DLC, but I never really got to experience it. Once I found out that the fucking aliens in the trailer were just stupid robots that just so happened to look almost exactly like the aliens from Mothership Zeta, I fucking rage quit. I mean, why? Just why would you tease an audience like this? I thought we were gonna get some kind of sinister alien subplot or something, but no! It's just another disappointment, a pointless subversion that only serves to let its audience down and inflate sales numbers through disingenuous marketing. But honestly, none of this even really matters because at the time, my character was a neutral good kind of guy. You know, the kind of guy who fucking hates raiders because of their sadistic, disgustingly gruesome tendencies. Doesn't matter though, because either way, good guy or bad, Nuka World is all about making and maintaining your own raider gang full of sadistic fucks and evil douchebags. There's no good option to this DLC, you just kind of have to be a bad guy to play it. Okay, sorry, there is a good ending. You just kind of kill all the gang leaders and that's it. No good guy companion, no compelling good guy characters, and no added perks. Just a technicality for the people who played good to neutral characters. The options are the following. Be a bad guy and actually experience the DLC that you paid for, which from what I've seen isn't really that interesting or compelling, or be a good guy and kill all the bad guys immediately. Yay! RPG mechanics! Oh, but what's this? A badass crocodile monster? It's just a reskinned Deathclaw. Textures pack. Okay, what the fuck? This is not fucking DLC! What the fuck is this shit? End. Huh? That's it? No more DLC? That's kinda just the end? 3 of these were bona fide construction packs, 1 of these only added a single questline to the game, another was fucking Far Harbor, and 1 is only really playable if your character is evil. How is any of this supposed to compare with what came out for any of the previous games? We are paying more money for all of this, and yet we're getting demonstrably less. Just look at previous DLCs. Almost every single one of them from both Fallout and New Vegas included entire new maps to explore with new characters, weapons, armor, experiences, and compelling storylines. Please tell me how that compares to any of this quote-unquote DLC. Stuff like this upsets me because at least Fallout 4's general screw-ups came mostly from narrative flaws, whereas the DLC for Fallout 4 felt like a deliberate shortchanging. Who knows, maybe all of this is just me being unreasonable and expecting too much. I just feel that the expectations you set with previous performances matter a lot, and when you've expanded and grown more capable as a company, you should show that through effort and consistency. Okay, actually, maybe that is unreasonable. I don't really see anyone in the industry doing this anymore. It just feels like once a company knows they have a core client base, they will slowly start to leech more and more off of them until their IPs no longer have any fans. I certainly feel like following this game up with Fallout 76, an infamously paywalled game, is a firm example of Bethesda doing this, as their IP took some serious heat for what was a drastically underwhelming release. And before anyone asks, yes, I have played Fallout 76, at launch and after the many patches and quote fixes. I still don't think it stacks up to literally any other Fallout game before it, and the lore established in it is some of the worst retconning work I've ever seen. Look, this could be the topic of its own video, so without getting sidetracked, essentially, Fallout 4 was so conflicting and borderline bad because its narratives, DLC, and quality all decreased tremendously when compared to the previous games and the lore they had already set up. It's hard for me to say this because I'm a huge fan of the Fallout universe, and I really think the guys who worked on this game were sincere in their desires to deliver something good. But I just can't fool myself anymore. And I was interested to see what the discussion around this video would be if I made it. You want to call me a scumbag for insulting your favorite game? Go right ahead. But if you watched to this far in the video, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I struck a chord with you. Either way, tell me your thoughts below. So good, out.